Testing, testing. Okay, we are live. Let me go back to Twitch. Skeleton Curse in real life is streaming on Twitch right now, and of course the Twitch drops are also live. Where to go? Skelly Curse, where'd you go? Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties here. This furnace fan keeps kicking on. It's extremely loud, and the fire is not even that hot right now. It's kind of annoying. Give me 5 minutes. Give me a few minutes here. Back at the Devil's Roar, of course. All right, testing. Boss gave me the day off today. Pretty pumped. It's dumb rainy day anyway outside. It's freaking gross. Looks disgusting. Still wet. On one of the jobs the other day, we were doing a clean out, and I found a set of books. It's actually a pretty decent set of books. There's some vegan books, some vegetarian books. There's one book that's like how to avoid cancer using your diet, which I thought that was really interesting. I can't wait to. I'm gonna get into those, but I also found some gold, which is a book I've heard in the freedom community quite a lot. It's a book called The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. Now, the freedom community quotes this book quite a lot, so I think inevitably it's going to end up on the list of book reviews. And it's really synchronistic, right? Because I was working, and I've heard about this book, and then I found it. There's literally a nugget of gold. I'm excited. And I've had so much synchronicity since I've been working at this new job. It's so much synchronicity. I've barely been able to pay attention. I stopped paying attention. Still drinking some coffee here. Need to wake up. Okay, let me move spots. Let's sit by the gold hoarders. What's this dude's name? Hide the Hoarder. Not the best looking, but... So, we will be on chapter 1 of The Last of the Hippies today. Let me just lean forward and grab it here. I was at a local pub last night after work. It's called the Pirates Cove. I got a sweater. It's an awesome little place. I don't really care, but it is kind of a fun fact. Adam Driver, the dude who played Kylo Ren, grew up and graduated from Mishawaka High School over here. And so the bar owner of the Pirates Cove had a photo with him and Adam Driver. Adam Driver was just here in town, I guess, and he stopped by the Pirates Cove. He had a burger, of course, because they're the best burgers in town. freaking love the Pirates Cove. But let's get into chapter 1 here. In this cell that is ours, there is no pity, no sunrise on the cold plain that is our soul, no beckoning to a warm horizon. All beauty eludes us, and we wait. Oh man, this book really, it's intense. But it's so good. Okay. On the 3rd of September, 1975, Phil Russell, alias Phil Hope, alias Wally Hope, alias Wally, choked to death on his own vomit. Blackberry, custard, bile lodged finally and tragically in the windpipe. Blackberry, custard, bile running from his gaping mouth into the delicate pattern of the ornamental carpet. No answer is in itself an answer, Oriental proverb. Wally died a frightened, weak, and tired man. 6 months earlier, he had been determined, happy, and exceptionally healthy. It had taken only that short time for Her Majesty's government's health department to reduce Wally Hope to a hopeless, puke-covered corpse. The first dream that I remember is of myself holding the hand of an older man, looking over a beautiful and peaceful valley. Suddenly a fox broke cover, followed by hounds and strong horses ridden by red-coated huntsmen. The man pointed into the valley and said, "That's my son. That, my son, is where you're heading." I soon found that out. I am the fox. Wally Hope, quote from 1974. For me, Wally's death marked the end of an era. He died alongside the last grain of trust that I naively had in the system. The last seeds of hope. Prior to that, I had felt that if I lived a life based on respect rather than abuse, my example might be followed by those in authority. Jesus. Of course it was a dream, but reality is based on 1,000 dreams of the past. Was it so silly that I should want to add mine to the future? It became necessary to destroy the town to save it. 20th century military logic. World War II was neither lost nor won. It simply created a horrific emptiness. Within that emptiness, there grew a desperation amongst the people of the world, a fear that civilization had learnt nothing from the tragic lessons of the Nazi death camps. Yeah, that's yep, still to this day, haven't learned a thing from the Nazi death camps or the cruel truths of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It seemed that those in power were setting the planet on a course towards total destruction. The arms race was full swing. The Cold War was running amok. The Third World was starving, but the superpowers looked only to themselves. In the horror of this new world, people turned to bizarre ways of calming their fears. To ignore is the easiest ignorance, but ignore became the key word as individuals buried themselves in the banalities of mindless materialism. The age of consumerism had been born. If you couldn't find peace of mind, perhaps a Cadillac would do. No money down. If life had lost its meaning, perhaps a super deluxe washing machine might give it back. The "this is mine, mine, mine" ownership and security boom is underway. Buy, possess, insure, protect. The TV world was upon us. Which one's real? This one, that one, mind-numbing crap to numb crappy minds. Mind-numbing crap to numb crappy minds. That's funny. Love the way he writes. Buy this, buy that. Who knows which is what or what is what? Who cares? Buy this, buy that. Layers of disposable plastic-wrapped garbage to hide the awful facts of life in a nuclear reality. Yeah, that's what the allegory of Fallout used to be about, and now since Fallout Season 2 is out, I don't know what the allegory of Fallout is trying to be. But, the original games, that's the allegory of Fallout. Buy this, buy that, layers of disposable plastic-wrapped garbage to hide the awful facts of life in a nuclear reality. And that's supposed to be a video game, but we relate to it in real life all too well. It says, buy this, buy that. I'm going to get some more coffee. Hope everybody's doing good today, aside from the crappy weather. Ooh, I'm actually gonna move too because freaking rare is gonna kick me. I'll sit in front of the Monkey Island lady. I think her name's Katie. It's not capsize Katie. I don't remember. Just gonna sit in front of you here and read a book in front of your shop. Don't mind me. She could probably use the education. Meanwhile, governments turned to the business of developing nuclear arsenals. Nuclear deterrence, that's in quotes, by the way. Nuclear deterrence, we were told, and the vast majority of the population, blinded by summer gewgaws and media junk, was happy to accept this lie. As long as everyone was having fun, no one would question the behavior of those in power as they played with the nuclear time bombs. But all this time, the fuse burnt shorter. However, if the majority is always happy to be blown along by the prevailing wind, there are also those who will stand against it. If the 50s saw a birth of consumerism, it also gave rise to two powerful oppositional forces, the peace movement and rock and roll. Both were in reaction to a world increasingly dominated by gray men of war and their gray thoughts. Both at least initially rejected the empty glitter of consumerism. Both represented a revolution against the abnormal values of, in quotes, normal society. The peace movement in Britain was founded on the platform of the newly formed Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. CND, by the end of the 50s, was able to call thousands of protesters onto the streets to make their voice heard. But a louder voice still could be listened to. At that time on the portable radios and wind-up gramophones of millions of homes, the harsh new voice of rock and roll. Whereas the peace movement was predominantly middle class, rock and roll knew no class barriers, and although it probably took the Beatles to finally bring together the various disillusioned parties, rock and roll revolution, a desire for change, and the peace movement have, from the very start, been as good as inseparable. Hold on. All right, still here. Testing. Freaking squirts being a hooligan back there. Regrettably, by the beginning of the 60s, CND had become an accepted and therefore contained part of the British way of life. Its shout of protest had been dulled by the voice of moderation. The aims of CND had become increasingly obscured by political opportunism. Leftist vultures, heavily disguised as doves, had moved in, and it became clear that the Labour Party saw CND as little more than a rung in the ladder to power. In 1964, as the opposition party, they promised to do away with Polaris. What is that, Polaris? The nuclear submarine force. A few months later, after election to power, they ordered 4 new submarines. The disguise wore thin. Speaking of, at this time, more military warfare is going on in Iran. Another ship was blown up. So America, these pathetic order-following cowards, said, hey, you want to meet over here? We'll give you a ship or something like that. I don't know exactly what happened. They said, we'll give you a ship. We'll meet you here. So the enemy, or quote unquote, the enemy, they're not my enemy. They're the government's enemy. The quote unquote enemy pulled a few of their vessels into the dock, and then the order-following American cowards launched missiles and sunk their ship, basically. So, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm an American. We're probably gonna get bombed. Like hopefully it's nowhere around me or around anybody that I know. Matt Bennett's in Chicago. I really hope nobody goes for the Trump Tower. Matt Bennett's extremely close to the Trump Tower. It makes me worried. I hate war. It's so stupid. But, like I said, this book has aged flawlessly, and it's uncanny how well some of these books from the 1980s and the 1990s have aged. It's ridiculous. A few months later, after the election to power, they ordered 4 new submarines, the disguised war thin. Michael Foote, at that time a C&D committee member, but now leader of the Labour Party, when asked if he would vote for an anti-bomb Tory party rather than a pro-bomb socialist one, he replied, "Certainly not." It acted as a bewildering statement to his desire for peace. The present rebirth of interest in C&D runs the risk of once again going up the well-worn political arsehole. Socialist power seekers have already moved in on the hard-fought for peace platform. Speeches at the 2 most recent Trafalgar Square rallies were directed more towards vote catching than peacemaking. When the issues weren't so fashionable, the leftist doves were happy enough to be sharing peanuts with the rest of the pigeons in the square. Now they are promising to refuse to allow America to install cruise missiles in Britain. Is this just another vote catcher that they will back off from if they are elected into power? I mean, yeah, most likely. I mean, that's what happens. Every time you vote these idiots into power, you give them your power by voting, which is an immoral action. We've talked about that on the channel. And then they do whatever they want in office. They can kill whoever they want. They can blow up whatever school they want. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about peace. All they care about is money and Satanism. I can't believe people are still so stupid that they don't understand how that works. After all these years, study history, study American history of voting. What has happened every time somebody has been voted into power? Some fucking tyrant got away with doing whatever the fuck he wants while charging the working class more money while we're working our asses off, and they're just robbing us and using our tax dollars to murder other people. And people are letting them get away with it. I just don't understand. Cruise missiles in Britain. Is this just another vote catcher they were allowed to back off from power? If it is allowed to do so, the Labour Party will sail C&D right down the river and sink it without a trace. Actually, let me move before. I'm on safe seas. I wish I could just hang out and sit in the same spot. Preferably the tavern, closest to the ale. Nuclear disarmament and the wider issues of peace must not be allowed to become political soap operas in which the power-hungry can play out their cynicism. Further to this, and quite apart from the obvious threat of political exploitation, a very real danger to the long-term existence of C&D and its allies is the current interest being shown in it by the music business. And still to this day, the music business is absolutely, every single business that is tied to Hollywood in any capacity, any business that makes a lot of money, which makes me sick. All of a sudden, peace has become a saleable commodity, a trendy product, and established record labels, the music press and bands alike, who 4 years ago dismissed those who opposed war as, in quotes, boring old hippies, are now bending over backwards to be seen to be supporting the cause. The only cause that they're supporting is their own. It's good promotion, good sales, good business, and they'll bleed it dry as long as it's this year's thing. When it isn't, they'll drop it as they did Rock Against Racism like a ton of hot bricks. Abso-fucking-lutely, Penny. Absolutely. If by the mid-'60s the power of protest had dwindled, the power of rock was showing no such faint heart. Rock and roll ruled, and no party conference was going to bring it down. Youth had found its voice and increasingly was demanding that it should be heard. Loud within the voice was one that screams promises of a new world, new colors, new dimension, new time, new space, instant karma, and all at the drop of an acid tab. My advice to people today is as follows. If you take the game of life seriously, if you take your nervous system seriously, if you take your sense organs seriously, if you take the energy process seriously, you must turn on, tune in, and drop out. Acid Prophet, Timothy Leary. That's another quote that was in the Musical Truth volumes. Oh, those such good books. Respectable society was shocked. Desperate parents backed off as their little darlings tripped. That's the right page. tripped over ornamental carpets. Hysterical reports that LSD caused everything from heartburn to mass suicide appeared almost daily in the press. Sociologists invented the new generation gap, and when the long-haired weirdo flashed a V sign at them, they got they got that all wrong as well. It was really a peace sign. But either way round, it meant fuck off. In the gray corner, we had what was normal and nice, and in the rainbow corner, we had sex, drugs, and rock and roll. At least that's how the media wanted us to see it. It was this time that the CND symbol was adopted as an emblem by the ever-growing legions of rock fans whose message of love and peace spread like a prairie fire worldwide. Let me make sure and don't lose my spot there. I need some more coffee here. Sorry if that sounded totally disgusting. Speaking of the the media and the news, it reminds me of these movies. Almost Famous is an interesting movie with actually pretty good songs. There's some really good songs in there. Almost Famous is one movie that I'm thinking of. And then another really good allegory that people are sleeping on, it's an older movie, it's called Network. Both of my ex-girlfriends both labeled this movie as an old person movie. That's because they're both idiots who don't pay attention to anything. If it's not a cell phone or, their own face in a mirror. But the Network is Network is an absolutely fantastic allegory, and that movie. If you watch the whole movie, it will show you why the media and the news is so corrupt to a T. I mean, the accuracy of that movie is flawless. And again, just like this book, the way that movie has aged will shock you how well that movie is aged. The way that they talk to each other, the way that they treat the women in the office, it's just aged so well because it's so accurate, so accurate. But back to the message. In its desperate need to label and thus contain anything that threatens to outdo its control, the media named this phenomenon hippie, and the system to which the media is number one tool in the fight against change, set about in its transparent but nonetheless effective way to discredit the new vision. Rock and roll was achieving something that had never been achieved before. It was proving the falsity of the socially created divisions of color, class, and creed. The barriers were coming down. It didn't matter who you were, where you were from, or what you did. If you dug it, you were cool. Goddamn hippies. Despite what followers of Oi, that's funny right there. I'm a follower of Oi, and my religion is Jedi. Despite what followers of Oi or Marx might say, rock and roll cannot be pigeonholed to fit into any specific political ideology. It is not the collective voice of the people, all the people, not just a platform for working class mythology, left, right, or center. Rock and roll is about freedom, not slavery. It's about revolution of the heart and soul, not convolution of the mind. To say that punk is or should be working class is to falsely remove it from the classless roots of the rock revolution from which it grew. Punk is a voice of dissent, an all-out attack on the whole system. It as much despises working class stereotypes as it does middle class ones. You guys got to watch the movie Bomb City. If you haven't watched the movie Bomb City, go buy it on Amazon. It's so good. Punk attacked the barriers of color, class, and creed. But look at how it is right now. Do you really think you're freed? Penny Rombaught of Crass. That's a Crass song, yeah. Punk attacked the barriers of color, class, and creed. But look at it now. Do you really think you're freed? Yeah, okay, I remember the song now. Oi has been promoted in the pages of the music press as the real punk. But whereas punk aims to destroy class barriers, Oi is blind enough to be conned into reinforcing them. Oi's spokesman, Gary Bushell, who in all probability has never done a day's manual work in his life, claims that only the working class can change society. Presumably, he realizes that his privileged professional status as a journalist prevents him from being in a position to contribute to his own pet theory. His myopic ideas of what working class means is little more than a middle class fantasy about a type of person who, except in his form of Alf Garnett and Andy Capt, just doesn't exist. His unrealistic view of workers as cloth-capped, beer-swilling, first-wave jokers is a complete insult to genuine working-class people. Oi would have been harmless enough if its comic book characters of the workers hadn't appealed so strongly to the elements that were inevitably drawn to its reactionary views. The so-called right wing, rather than rejecting its new and possibly unwanted following, Oi appeared to revel in its image of being nasty Nazi music for the real men. No, let's back it up. Oi is not Nazi music, first of all. Hold on. That's so not true. So not true. Not true at all. And I wonder if Penny believes that skinheads are racist people. No, skinheads are sharps. Skinheads against racial prejudice. That's a sharp. A racist bald guy is a fucking bonehead. That's a fucking Nazi. A worthless piece of trash Nazi. Man. Again, go watch the movie Bomb City. It'll teach you. It'll teach you. I used to be in an Oi band. We were all sharp, or I wasn't a sharp. It's a funny thing at the Oi festival in Connecticut. Not one of them had a razor, so I couldn't get my bald head christened that weekend. I would have though. I was down. So-called right wing. Rather than objecting its new and possibly unwanted following, Oi appeared to revel in its image. Yeah, I'm not saying that again. Defending the trail of blood and bruises that it left behind itself wherever it went. The new breed claimed that they weren't advocating violence, they were just reflecting the way things are. Despite repeated evidence of Oi-inspired violence, it became increasingly obvious that Oi the Bushel and Oi the bands were either perfectly happy with the way things were or totally incapable of controlling that monster that they created. Now, that I will agree with. Most of these bands that I went on tour with, and in fact, most of these bands that I shared a stage with in Connecticut, most of these guys don't give a fuck about true freedom. They just want to play guitar, they want to play with their little toys, drink the little beer out of their fucking dumbass sippy cups. They don't, not one of them cares about true freedom. Most of them fucking probably voted for dumbass racist Trump. You know, if I'm being honest with myself and being realistic, most of them did vote Trump. Like they were talking about politics at this fucking Oi Fest in Connecticut. Anytime I heard people start talking about politics, I just walked away and went and drank a beer by myself. You know, it's like, and they don't do anything for freedom. They just bitch about it. They just bitch about taxes. You know, they don't make videos they don't make presentations. They don't share Mark Passio's work. They don't talk about natural law. They don't talk about morality. All they do is eat dead flesh all day and drink shitty beer. It's and they're all fat too. They're all like really greasy and fat and like just gross, like just gross people. Like, you know, you can't even get them to jog a block. If God forbid if they do, they're gonna have to smoke like 14 cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like that. I will agree with you there, Penny. Most of these bands were either perfectly happy with the way things were or totally incapable of controlling the monsters that they created. At a time when something could have been done to change the image, the Strength Through Oi album was released. But rather than making an effort to shift the right-wing emphasis, it deliberately promoted it. The less than attractive cover sported your average skinhead about to land his cherry reds up someone's Khyber. But that week, the cherries also left their marks on an old age pensioner's face. No matter, you can't win them all. Inside the sleeve, Oi the Bushel wrote about the sea of crop heads running riot, knife blades flashing in the moonlight. Well, it's poetry, ain't it? But that week, the knife blades also flashed into an Asian youth's stomach. Jesus Christ. No matter, accidents will happen, won't they? The greatest accident of them all, South Hall, finally exposed Oi for the dangerous farce that it is. An Oi gig in a predominantly Asian community was inevitably going to cause problems. It would be unfair to suggest that the violence was deliberately planned by either the bands or the organizers of the gig, but given the reputation of Oi's following, It should have been more than obvious that there would be trouble. Nonetheless, Oi the Panto blindly marched in, and as the shit hit the fan, South Hall burned, and our jolly jokers, shaken and bruised, retreated to the pages of the press to protest their innocence. Well, the Asians weren't there for the concert. They only live there, don't they? This time round, no one as much as giggled. Left wing, right wing, you can stuff the lot. That's such a good song. I love that song. Yeah, and if you listen to Crass, you'll see all these Crass quotes. Man, it gets me fired up. Left ring, right ring, you can stuff the lot. Anarchy and freedom is what I want. Freaking love that album. By the late 60s, straight society was beginning to feel threatened by what its youth was up to. It didn't want its gray towns painted rainbow. The psychedelic revolution was looking a little bit too real. It had to be stopped. Books were banned. Yeah, still to this day, books are being banned. Oh my God. Books were banned and bookshops were closed down. Offices and social centers were broken into and their files were removed to be fed into police computers. Actually, let me fix that. I mean, there are being books banned in certain schools, but they don't have to ban books because people are too fucking stupid to read books. They don't read Kindle. Most people don't even listen to audio books. If they do consume a book, it's an audio book, most of the time nowadays. And there have been many reports where these books on Amazon Kindle are being edited and they're being taken out, and some of the information is being deliberately guarded. So the only way to really get true information is to read the actual book, because digital, they can alter it at any time they want. They can change any detail they want. Disney is doing it even for their streaming services. Some of the old school Disney movies like Fox and the Hound, some other Disney movies have been censored, and they just cut shit out. They just cut it out with no explanation and don't explain it, and they don't stand by their racism, because they're probably still racist to this day. I freaking hate Disney. Underground papers and magazines collapsed under the weight of official pressure. Galleries and cinemas had whole shows confiscated. Artists, writers, musicians, and countless unidentified hippies were dragged through the courts to answer trumped-up charges of corruption, obscenity, drug abuse, or anything else that might silence their voice. But nothing could. It all mattered too much. As oppression became increasingly heavy, public servant Bobby became known as public enemy Piggy. War had been declared on the peace generation, but love wasn't going to give in without a fight. Let me move spots here. All right, mouse still moving. We're still here. Hello, testing. All right, sick. And Charles said, "Let there be death," and there was death. And the media and its faithful followers recoiled in horror at the thought that it might have been their child ordering the slaughter. Anything you see in me is in you. If you want to see a vicious killer, that's you'll see. If you want to see me as your brother, that's who I'll be. It all depends on how much love you have. I am you, and when you can admit that, you will be free. There's a quote from Charles Manson. Hey, controller. God, I can't wait to order this new Beagle Eye Green controller. It's going to be so awesome. Charles Manson, weaver of words, psychedelic warlord, witch doctor of religious perversion, high priest of fascist sexuality, hit back at the society that had distorted his vision with the distorted methods that society itself employs and teaches its young. Violence. And God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, Charles Manson, Piggy, written in blood on the polished surfaces of social acceptance. No more shall ye walk alone. Manson and his, in quote, family, and the macabre killings for which they were responsible sent shock waves through a smug and complacent society. Manson regarded the elite of his California homeland as filth. These respectable people to whom he supplied drugs and from whom he often, as not, received no payment, were to him cheats and liars. Yeah, it's because he's getting his drugs from CIA, bro. These decent folk who wife swapped. Oh my fucking god. These decent folk who wife swapped. I mean, I guess it's. I mean, if it's consensual, you know, be as hedonistic as your heart desires. Decent folk who wife swapped, thrilled to video recordings of their illicit sexual conquest, reveled in snuff movies, who saw flesh as something to be devoured, were, to him, barbarians. These pillars of society to whom organizations like the Mafia were a hidden support in their rise to grace, to whom the mysterious death of an opponent caused little more than a knowing lift of an eyebrow, were to him the enemy. Filth. Manson's activities, extreme as they might have been, did represent a revolutionary stance, but because he had acted from a personal standpoint, he was condemned by leftists, who happily defended equally extremist groups like Bader Meinhof or the IRA on the grounds that their position was political. The position was political. This kind of double standard is the inevitable product of society that sees its own voice soldiers as heroes, and those... Yeah, let me say that. This kind of double standard is the inevitable product of a society that sees its own boy soldiers as heroes. Sickening. And those of the enemy as murdering bastards, to whom its own massacres and victories, and those of the enemy are massacres. Questions about the morality of violence are self-defeating. There is and can be no morality in violence. The vicious circle of violence rolls on and on. Yeah, study natural law, everybody. You might learn something. It can only be stopped by our refusal to be in any way a part of it. Charles Manson made the mistake of setting out to destroy his enemy in the way he believed they would destroy him. Violence. But in some respects, he was right. Hippies got along fine as long as they accepted that they were third-class citizens who should not expect anything but the garbage of consumer society. They were fine as long as they were prepared to live in shit and be treated like shit. When they ceased to do so, they came up against the whole weight of a society that had no place for the third-class citizens that it had created. They came up against the state violence, which euphemistically is called law. Manson. Do you really know where we are? Leary. Where are we? Manson. This is eternity, brother. This is the end of the line. No one ever gets out once they've been here. This is forever. Manson meets Leary. Oh, Manson and Timothy Leary meet in jail. I think I'm still getting over sickness. It's like stuffy. The Manson killings gave the media precisely what it was looking for. Hippies were suddenly no longer a passive bead-wearing joke. They were potential psychopaths who, at the drop of a Beatles record, would knife their way to eternity. Forgetting that hippie was a rejection of a society which governs with fear, controls by force, and in the name of God has slaughtered millions of innocent victims, upright citizens waggled their trigger fingers at youth saying, "See, I told you so. That's what sex and drugs and rock and roll lead to." They're still at it. 10 years later, the same kind of media treatment was doled out to Sid Vicious. Yep. I hate what happened. I hate what happened to Sid Vicious. Despite attempts to silence it, punk had earned itself a voice and had become a household reality. However, the media was determined to undermine it. Nancy's sad death in a New York hotel brought out some of the same dull voices of self-righteous indignation as had the Manson killings. The trigger finger waggled again, and when Sid joined her in the great safety pinned beyond, there was an almost universal chorus of, "See, I told you so." Yeah, those punk rockers, even though their record labels literally caused it. If you do the research, the record labels caused it. I don't think Sid killed Nancy. I don't think they would do that to each other. I think it was a planned opposition type of thing. Chelsea Hotel is a breeding ground of SRA victims. I would love to visit there, but hopefully I'd come out alive. I should do a Chautauqua of Dee Dee Ramone's book. I think that'd be fun. Manson and Sid were very different individuals with different agendas, but their usefulness to the system was the same. Identify the threat, select convenient scapegoats, and use them to discredit the threat. Manson and Sid were both portrayed by the media as being typical of their kind, their actions being used to prove the misguided nature of all those of a similar appearance. The fact that their actions were as much condemned by their own kind as anyone else was irrelevant to the media and requirements to label, contain, and destroy. Yeah, exactly. So many fake-ass punks think they know what the fuck they're talking about. But most fake-ass punks, again, they just want to drink beer. They just want to go to shows, hurt themselves either on a skateboard or at shows or by doing drugs and sticking needles into their arm. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. When are these people going to fucking grow up? Yeah, when you bring up Sid and Nancy at a punk show, most people will be like, "Oh yeah, they're pieces of shit. They're pieces of shit," even though they claim themselves to be punk rockers. It's like, and then of course, they didn't do any research into the murders, so they haven't read any books on the topic. They haven't studied. They haven't looked into it or done any of their own research. How could you do research when you're too busy drinking beer and getting fucked up at a punk rock show? You know what I mean? How could you read a book when you're too busy being hedonistic? I mean, you don't have time for that, right? Get your priorities in order. I gotta go get more beer. What a fucking joke. Oh man, the fact that their actions were as much condemned by their own kind. Each and every day, the TV, the radio, and the newspapers manipulate and direct the thoughts of the general public, tell them what to think and how to think. But it's not because they want to improve the quality of thought. It's purely that they are required by the establishment interests to run them to reinforce standard social values. Serve that which serves you or else. When media is controlled almost exclusively by the wealthy ruling elite, censorship becomes unnecessary. Money speaks louder than words. Murdoch's monstrous minions. Beagles are getting active. I need to hurry up. Manson's activities gave hippie a new and, on the whole, unwanted dimension. Acid casualties became media satans. Hippie cults became press devils, and both were subjected to a new wave of shock horror exposés. Acid was blamed for endless hideous crimes by the drunken pill-popping power mongers in authority, who, under heavy sedation from legally prescribed drugs or reeling from the effects of excess alcohol, consider themselves fit enough to rule our world and qualified enough. Should they consider it necessary to destroy it, hippie cults were attacked for doing precisely what established religion and psychology had been up to for centuries. Mind fucking. It's funny now that with all the stuff that came out with Diddy, speaking of the music industry and all that garbage, go watch the movie Get Him to the Greek. After and then think about all of the Diddy parties with the baby oil and stuff like that. Go watch Get Him to the Greek, which it's a hilarious movie. Even though the artists, the music, again, they just portray music artists as dumb artists who just want to get fucked up all the time, and they don't care if they destroy marriages, they don't care if they destroy other people's lives. And artists aren't like that, okay? The real artists are not like that at all. There's cool ones out there. It's just the way the media portrays. Of course, the way the media portrays everything is in a negative light. Just everything's a big joke. Nothing's sacred, right? From Christ to Freud, Freud. I don't know what that is. Interesting. From Christ to Freud, there have always been those who, to compensate for their own personality defects, seek control and power by playing on the sense of loneliness and alienation of others. However, despite attempts to dismiss all hippies as dangerous psychopaths, the movement, although increasingly forced underground, grew both in numbers and in political awareness. 5 years back, the message had been to do your own thing, exactly the message that 15 years later Johnny Rotten was to repeat. Yeah, Johnny Rotten and Jello Biafra and Offspring and Bad Religion and all of the other fake-ass punk rock bands who are on Epitaph. Any of these fake-ass punk rock bands, if they're playing Riot Fest if they're playing, Fat Mike's fake ass Anarchy Camp, if any of these bands are playing these Anarchy Camps, be very careful of them, because they're probably controlled opposition. The Pollux had been one of rejection. Society, the state, and the system had got nothing to offer. A whole generation had followed Leary's credo and dropped out. They formed little groups like rich man's ghettos, tending their goats and organic tomatoes. While the world was fucked by fascist regimes, they talked of windmills and psychedelic dreams. Penny Rumbaugh of Crass. That's all. What song is that? I'm gonna have to look that up. Actually, I'm looking that up right now. I really want to play some video games. Come on, phone. Stupid smartphone. They formed little groups like rich men's ghettos, tending their goats and organic tomatoes. While the world was fucked by fascist regimes, they talked of windmills and psychedelic dreams. General Bacardi. Oh yeah, on Feeding of the 5,000. That's a really good song. General Bacardi. I mean, again, from little groups like rich men. Okay. Throughout this time, normal society, the state, and the system had benefited very nicely. Thank you. They hadn't just stayed right where they were. They'd grown ever stronger, and still keep growing to this day. Slowly, as people woke up to the fact that turning on was turning off and dropping out was copping out. The horrific reality of the nuclear world forced its way back through the escapist blur of those psychedelic dreams. The acid revolution had been fun, but that's just about where it had ended. Beneath the new space, the new time, the new dimensions, and the new colors, the same old gray reality had ground relentlessly onwards. The dream was over. The dream had been that if you created your own life independent of the system would leave you to it. Looking back on it now, it seems pathetically naive, but for maybe 15 years, it had sustained the lives of thousands of people. The ultimate failure of hippies was its ostrich-like approach to life. A hippie utopia surrounded by a world of hate and war was like snow before the summer sun. Exactly. That's kind of how I see Skatopia too, and which is why Skatopia is just filled with hedonistic, self-indulgent people. You could have a utopia, right? You could have a property with gardens or like United Plant Savers. You could have this idealistic heaven utopia, but if you still are surrounded by hate, evil, greed, and psychopaths, then those hateful, greedy, evil psychopaths are probably going to find some way on your property and probably going to find some way to give you hell and create problems. The energy vampires will always be there in a world that's filled with hedonistic psychopaths. Freaking lost my spot. The acid revolution had been fun, but that's just about where it had ended. A hippie utopia surrounded by a world of hate and war was like snow before the summer sun. Eventually, those who weren't too permanently stoned to guarantee pipe dreams to infinity pulled their heads from the sands to confront a society that had got on very well without them for far too long. What was left of the hippie movement was finding a truly militant front for itself. Meanwhile, the peace movement had been all but destroyed by political greed and academic backbiting. The writing was on the wall. The things were going to have to change. This time around, peace was going to be a way of life. And love was going to rule supreme. And what's more, this time we'd be prepared to fight for it. This is a long chapter. Holy cow. Holy cow. It's still going. It just keeps going. 55, 57, 59, 61. It literally just keeps going. Are there chapters in this book? I thought there were. Let me see. I don't think there are chapters in this book. No, doesn't look like. Oh, so I guess there is no chat. I'm gonna have to fix that title. But let's get to page 40, and then we'll call it there because I really want to play some video games. I got to do some dishes, take the recycling out. It's like 70 degrees outside, and the sun's popping out of the window right now. So yeah, I'm gonna do some cleaning around the house, do some laundry, blah 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 blah, blah 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 blah. So we are a generation of obscenities. The most oppressed people in this country are not blacks, not the poor, but the middle class. They don't have anything to rise up against and fight against. We will have to invent new laws to break. The first part of the Yippie program is to kill your parents. Until you're prepared to kill your parents, you're not ready to change this country. Our parents are our first oppressors. Now, this is a quote. Obviously, I do not agree with any of that bullshit that he just said. That's a quote from Jerry Rubin, leader of the Yippies, which are militant hippies, speaking at Kent State University, USA. Jesus, that's ridiculous. He was allowed to say that at a university and got away with it? Good God. His mom needed to spank him after saying that shit out loud. Jesus Christ. Within a month of Rubin's speech, the university was in uproar. The mostly white middle-class students had staged innumerable demonstrations and burnt down part of the university to show their objection to the way in which both their campus and their country were being run. The authorities called in the army to restore peace, which they did in true military fashion by shooting dead 4 students. Yeah, this makes me so angry. I hate the Kent State massacre. Oh, let me hit this disgusting government cock vape app before I read this part. Yeah, this is a great time to stop after this page. Jesus Christ. Get some cleaning done. Shout out to the 45 adapters. The 45 adapters actually opened up for the Bare Knuckle Hooligans when I was playing with them in Connecticut. And they have a song about taking out your trash. And I freaking love the 45 adapters. They just put out a new song, too. I need to check it out. I need to look it up. The singer, actually every single member of the 45 adapters, they are all such, like, well-dressed gentlemen. I love those guys. Legends. After the shooting stopped, this is a quote, by the way. After the shooting stopped, I heard screams and turned and saw a guy kneeling and holding a girl's head in his hands. The guy was getting hysterical, crying, yelling, shouting, "Those fucking pigs, they shot you." A Kent State student. I believe that was his girlfriend, too. If, you can go back and look at the testimonials of some of the people. I think that was his girlfriend that got shot in the face by a cop. Although past history should have been a lesson to him, what Rubin hadn't accounted for was what Rubin hadn't accounted for was that parents would be prepared to kill their own children rather than accept change. Mother. Anyone appears to be in the streets of a city like Kent with long hair, dirty clothes, or barefooted deserves to be shot. Question. Is long hair a justification for shooting someone? Mother. Yes, we have got to clean up this nation, and we'll start with the long hairs. Question. Would you permit one of your sons to be shot simply because he went barefooted? Mother. Yes. And that's a quote, and the book says, a mother speaks out. The days of flower power were over. The piggies were out grazing in the meadows. And then the next page, on page 40, starts off with a Ronald Reagan quote. It says, I'm very proud to be called a pig. It stands for pride, integrity, and guts. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. So, we'll get more into this. We'll get more into this book. We're already almost halfway through the book, so we're kind of really blowing through this. Pretty good stuff. Pretty tragic stuff, like what happened with the Kent State University. If this is your first time hearing about the Kent State University, make sure you go look it up. Make sure you look up Ruby Ridge right after that one. And, do your best to stay tuned and stay gold. I'm going to go clean and get all the chores done. Modern day chupacabras. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I'm signing off, but thanks for tuning in, brother. I appreciate it. All right, stay tuned, stay gold, everybody. Beagle Eyes signing off. Watch out for those modern day chupacabras.